Now, in addition to growth, we need to talk more about reform. Again, there's a huge contrast. Think about people like the president and Hillary Clinton. They tend to measure success in government by how many people are dependent on the government, right? I don't know about you, but I think for most of us in this country, we believe that success should be measured by just the opposite, by how many people are no longer dependent on the government. That's right. You see, we understand that true freedom and prosperity do not come from the mighty hand of the government. They come from empowering people to live their own lives and control their own destinies through the dignity that is born of work. When I was a small kid growing up, we had moved to Delavan from Colorado Springs to Plainfield, Iowa, eventually to Delavan, Wisconsin when I was in 3rd grade. And my first job was washing dishes at the Countryside Restaurant. Later in life, I moved up in the big time in high school. I started flipping hamburgers at McDonald's. True story, I was in Delavan. Paul Ryan, my good friend, was about 20 miles down the road from me in Janesville. He was flipping burgers there. I was flipping burgers at my home. The only difference is his manager told him he had to flip hamburgers in the back because he didn't have the interpersonal skills to work the front cash register. It's true. But regardless of that, I think about my time as a kid, growing up there working, learning that work ethic from those first jobs. I think about my parents, my dad, a small-town preacher, my mom, a part-time secretary and a bookkeeper at one of the businesses in town. And I think about them and my grandparents, my mom's parents, my grandpa and grandma were farmers that didn't have indoor plumbing until my mother went off to junior high school. My dad's dad, my grandpa Walker, was a machinist for 42 years at Barbara Coleman. I look back in life, and for my brother and I, we realized we didn't inherit fame or fortune from our family. What we got was the belief that if you work hard and you play by the rules, you can do and be anything you want in America. That's the American dream, and we need to be champions for everyone to live the American dream. And finally, in addition to talking about growth and about reform, the last thing I want to spend a moment or two talking about is safety. Safety. You see, some of you might think, what is he talking about? Safety. Is that public safety? Is it boater safety? Is it hunter safety? No. Safety to me is what many people in Washington call national security. But see, I call it safety because when I see a video of a Jordanian pilot burned alive in a cage, when I see Christians from Egypt and elsewhere around the world beheaded because of their faith, that's something I feel in my heart and in my soul. And that makes me worry for the safety of them and for others like them and for people all around this world, including me and my family. And I got to tell you, I think there's an increasing interest around this country and around this world for America to start leading again. You see, this may seem odd, but even though as a governor I don't deal with this every day, this has been at the top of my list of concerns for the last year or so. Because when I see a president who draws a line in the sand and allows people to cross it, when I see a president who calls ISIS the JV squad, who calls Yemen a success story, who calls Iran a place we can do business with, boy, that just troubles me. I remember as a kid back in 79 and 80, my brother David and I used to put yellow ribbons around the tree in front of our house, our oak tree in the front, because for 444 days, 52 Americans were held hostage in Iran. One of them is a friend of mine named Kevin Hermaning, who was the youngest Marine held hostage at that time. He grew up in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. He lives in Wausau right now. And I realized, watching what happened to Kevin back then, Iran has not changed. Iran is not a place we should do business with. And then I look at this president, earlier this year, he literally looked in the eyes of the American people and said, the greatest threat for future generations is climate change. It's climate change. Well, I got a message for you, Mr. President. The greatest threat for the American people, the greatest threat for the people of the world is not climate change. It is radical Islamic terrorism, and we need leaders who are willing to stand up and do something about it. We need a president who understands that Israel is actually an ally and will start treating her as such. And we need a president who has the courage to look the American people in the eye and tell them something that might not be easy to hear. You see, it's not going to take a week or a month or maybe even a year. But our enemy today is not like the enemy of the past. It's not like for those of us who grew up in the Cold War where containment was enough. No, our enemy today is like a virus. It's like a virus. If you don't take it out, it will only come back stronger. And as I look at the world today, on behalf of your children and mine, I'd rather take the fight to them instead of waiting till they bring the fight to us. And so there's a lot at stake at this next election. And there's a lot of great Republicans either thinking about or already in this race. But I would just ask one quick thing, and then I want to end with a quick story to bring this all home. I would ask, as you consider who you might support for president, that you think about the fact that there are really a great emerging group of Republican candidates, but they really kind of fall into two camps. There are fighters who have yet to win those battles. And there are winners who have yet to fight those battles. If we were to throw our hat in the ring, I would contend to you that we could do both. Fight those battles and win those battles on the issues that matter to everyday Americans to further our common sense conservative reforms. And so as we end, before I spend a few minutes sitting down with Hugh Hewitt and answering some questions for you here this evening, I just want to tell you I'm an optimist. I love America. I love the people of this country. I'm upset with the federal government, but I love America and the people of this great country, and I'm optimistic about the future. I'm optimistic not just because of what I've seen in my state, but in many other states across this country. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen common sense, conservative, Republican reformers take office in our states and transform those states moving forward. But more so than just what we've seen over the last few years, I'm an optimist because I love the history of America. And I know the history of America will lead us to better days to come. You see, as a kid, I grew up loving history so much, I thought of our founders as almost bigger than life. Superheroes in my mind. And so over the years, though, we never had a chance to go to Philadelphia. And a couple years back, Tonette and I, my wife and I, who's here with me tonight, we got a chance to go to Philadelphia for the first time. And as you can imagine, as someone who loved history and loved thinking about those remarkable founders, we got up early in the morning. We went over past the Liberty Bell, and with the Park Service, we went into Independence Hall. For any of you who have ever been there, you know it's pretty small. It's about a fraction of this stage we're on up here. And so as I got up there early in the morning, as the sun was coming up, and I looked into the room and kind of took it all in, I looked at the desk, and I looked at the chairs, and I was ready to be blown away. But instead, it dawned on me. These were ordinary people. These were ordinary people who'd done something quite extraordinary. You see, these were people who didn't just risk their political careers. These were people who didn't just risk their business ventures. These were patriots who risked their lives for the freedom we hold dear today. Ladies and gentlemen here tonight, I would tell you that moments like that remind me that what makes America great, what makes us exceptional, what makes us the greatest country in the history of the world has been all throughout our nation's history. In times of crisis, be it economic or fiscal, be it military or spiritual, what makes America amazing has been all throughout those times. There have been men and women of courage who've been willing to think more about the future of their children and their grandchildren than they thought about their own futures. Ladies and gentlemen here tonight, I would tell you that this is one of those times. This is one of those moments in history This is the opportunity for us to look back and tell future generations, we were there. We stood up. We did what was required to make America great again. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you're going to do. Thank you for helping to make America great again.